What's the executive session for, personnel or property or?
Real estate.
Meeting to order of Shaftsbury Select Board, Monday, November 17th, a little bit late at 6:40. And first address minor schedule changes. I want to add an executive session at the end to discuss real estate. And so do we not want to talk about item 9 tonight?
No, I think we do.
We do?
Yeah, at least tell the public.
Okay,
Yes.
but there are parts of it that you want to discuss in executive session?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, excellent. All right, any other schedule changes? All right, let's move into approval of warrants. I have payroll warrant number 7 in the amount of $17,364.94. I move we approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the payroll warrant? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
What are the big expenses?
This is,
Oh, payroll?
I
Okay,
payroll, did
okay.
I say payroll every time I meant? Yeah, payroll. Yeah,
Okay, never
yeah,
mind.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, payroll. Yeah, so the big expenses are our employees.
Yeah.
Yeah. All in favor, any opposed or abstentions? We have another payroll warrant, number 10. This in the amount of $16,787.79. I move we approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? I have retirement warrant number 10 in the amount of $127.34. I move we approve.
Second.
Second by Mitch. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Retirement warrant number 9 in the amount of $126.32. I move we approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? And check warrant number 11 in the amount of $46,864.10. I move we approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Major items are American rock salt to the tune of almost $10,000. H2O Express Transport, no, yeah, H2O
Yeah.
Express Transport, $1,300.
They're bringing the tractor up
Okay,
Reallocated.
from Maryland up here.
okay. Mountain Air Assessors, $38.28, that's our appraiser. Myers Electric, $5,000, that would be for the school
She has
generator.
partial payment for that.
New England Municipal Resource, $12.53,
That's a NIMRIC system.
Nimerick. People's United Bake, $10,943,
It's the annual bond payment for the water department.
Water Department, okay. Sycamore Landscaping, $2,000 for cemetery mowing. Rob Wilmington, $14.43 for miscellaneous things that have come up lately, including the
Yeah.
salt shed next door. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, abstained? Okay, item 3, conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with anything appearing on the agenda tonight? No?
Nope.
Approval of minutes. Minutes from last meeting have been circulated with my edits. I move we approve the minutes that have been circulated for the meeting on 11/3.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Minutes are approved. Just down some of this stuff here. Announcements. Does anyone have any announcements?
Just the tree lighting ceremony again, Sunday, December 7th, so that's at 4 PM here.
All right. Do we have that on our website?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Number 5, public comments. I see no public. Unless our cameraman wants to say something, we...
Not today.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report, I don't see a treasurer.
Bill had a conflict this evening, so he just asked that he not apologize, and he can't be here tonight. He actually had not finished the whole reconciliation with the tax payments and anything, so I'll have a more complete report at the next meeting.
Yeah, he's probably still a little busy.
Yes. It's been pretty hectic down the old treasurer's office the last week. Terry Stacy for the Road Farms report, he asked if he could abstain tonight. He was up quite early this morning,
Okay.
out checking the roads at 3 in the morning. So I told him I could do this for him. The road report is they got out early this morning and cleared the roads of the slush, did some salting, and they're hoping it doesn't freeze completely tonight, so they have to be back and out at 4 in the morning. But the salt shed, the big part of his is the salt shed. We did find at Bernstein over here, they had a fully permitted salt shed in the back corner of their property that we were able to put 80 ton of salt in. I can't believe we could push that much in there, but we got 80 ton of salt in it. They're renting it to us as a nominal add-on to the graders that we also park at the building. I think the whole thing totaled us about $600 a year. We did repair the roof for him, which didn't cost very much, and put some new plywood on the siding. We tarped over the front. It's basically sealed up with 80 tons of salt in it. It's our emergency supply. The agreement is we won't go near it unless we hit the back wall over here. But then we do have a substantial amount ready for us. So it worked out very well. And again, like I said, it was really helpful. It was approved not only by the state, but by the town. Has all its permits. It's been in use since the 80s. In fact, there was salt in it that we took out and mixed in over here. So it's a continuous use, and it's worked out very well. It was very timely to find. And they
I
didn't
recall
care.
the lease for that is like, we're paying Bernstein.
Like $600 for storing the 2 graders, the excavator, and the full use of this shed. So it's really been quite beneficial to us. It
Great,
really
yeah.
has been.
Do you know if we gave North Bennington back their 20 tons?
We did do that too. So we've consumed a lot of salt lately, but we have more salt than I think we've ever had now in town, so.
What's the plan in the springtime, to figure on using that so it don't just sit in there all year? Like
I'm
when you
sorry.
get down toward the spring, would you use that up rather than just let it sit there all summer?
I think, one of the things we talked about was just bringing over our trucks as you do get closer, and just loading our trucks and bringing them over here and dumping them in here. We don't want to be running an operation over there. We would just load our truck.
Right, I mean,
and dump
what
it.
I'm saying is just.
Yeah, so it doesn't
you
turn
got
into a
you-
huge rock over the summer, yeah. And then we could start again next
Right.
next year, yeah.
Right.
No, I hear what you're saying, yeah, we don't want a big lump of
Big
salt
brick.
there. Yeah. Yeah, that would be bad. And for the road forms report, that was pretty much it for this evening. They are trying to grade the last few roads we can if the weather stays with us. I know I've received some phone calls about some roads and potholes, and we're trying to get to as many as possible before it becomes too late. We are still taking down a few trees on Holy Smoke to try and widen that up beforehand. And days like today, a lot of it, they had a couple of the sanders out, so I had to readjust some of those things and work in the garage a lot today to get things done. But hopefully, if the weather breaks, we can do some more roads before it's too late in the season. But it's getting close. That's it.
Well, we're up to item 8, the town administrator's report.
Okay, so I'll just keep going right along. The postage meter isn't really going to work. It's too expensive. Even the cheapest ones are too expensive for us. But there are alternatives out there, from printing some postage on your computers to the other system that we had the other day of, there's just...
Stamps.com.
Yeah, there's other ways of doing it. We have to figure out the cost factor between the pre-stamped, pre-printed envelopes we get, which we do get at a discount from the Postal Service, and the cost of doing it another way. A lot of, like the ballot things that go out, they're a little bit different, and I don't know if that would save any money either. But the meters themselves, just, it's too much. It costs more than anything we're spending putting stamps on down here. We just don't have the volume. We have the bulks a couple of times, water bills and tax bills. The rest of it's, there'll be 20 envelopes that go out with this warrant, and during the course of the year, it doesn't amount to very much. And they all go out in pre-stamped envelopes too, so. Yeah, so it's probably not going to amount to much. The White Creek Road is completely done. The state reimbursement money has come in. Our end of it was a little over $31,000, so that project's closed out. The truck lease, we did get Delores paid. Everything's in the works. The body is still being installed up in Viking, up in Williston. We're still hoping on getting that within a couple of weeks. I don't have the exact date. It's gone everywhere from January to December to back to November, and now it's December. So apparently they didn't get a part. Yeah, it's the old story. They didn't get a part, so therefore everything gets backed up, and the money's waiting to pay them as soon as Terry gets notified it's ready, and we go up and inspect it. I mean, the truck part, the chassis and that, we drove up there, so we know that's fine. It's just the body, one of those delays you can't do much about.
Okay.
But we do have access to another truck should we need it. We can get a truck to borrow if we need to get 6 trucks out plowing or something. So we do have backup. But hopefully, this thing will get here fairly
Whose
soon.
backup's that, North Bennington or Bennington?
Well, we've everyone from Delore to, we
Okay.
can always use the North Bennington truck when they finish, because we do share each other's equipment, so it helps out when we get in the bind. But we can always find another truck. If we're really pressed, we can always find another truck to borrow or rent if we needed to, honestly. And then that's about it for that.
Okay. Item 9, property transfer. This involves the infamous cross property next door that we use, that our sand pile is sitting on, that our equipment is sitting on. You may have noticed that there's a for sale sign out in front of that property. We started to worry that what are we going to do if that property sells and the new owners don't want a giant sand pile and a bunch of trucks on that property? How are we going to run the road crew? Art has been thinking about that harder than anybody, and has some ideas on how to move forward on that. Art, you want to tell us what you've been doing?
Well, it's just that I think it's important that the town at least look into acquiring that one way or another. And so that's what the negotiations are starting to, it's to the point where we've got to hire appraisers and lawyers and that sort of thing. And I just thought the townspeople should know that we are at least working towards that. And I think it's very important that all the negotiations be done in executive session when it comes time to negotiate with the owners and that type of thing.
Okay. Do you want to get into any of the details that have been suggested on how to acquire it?
Not right now, I think.
Okay.
It's just that we're working towards that.
Okay.
I think it ought to be, knowing the public ought to know that it's looking at like a swap, and there might not be any funds actually exchanged hands.
That's one possibility of many possibilities, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're looking at various possibilities. That has been offered up as a possibility.
Absolutely.
That will involve things like surveys and appraisals and things like that we will have to spend money on. But we wanted the public to know that we are aware that we currently, at least in the short term, until we figure out what the answer to the garage situation is, we do have a need to use that property. I would also like to point out that that does not mean that this board has changed its mind about placing the garage there. As we just demonstrated with the business of the salt shed, this board believes in abiding by their own rules, and the fact is that what's happening on that property and on our property is industrial activity in village residential zone. It's grandfathered in, but if we build a garage, change anything there, we're not in zoning. Nobody else would be allowed to do that, and we are disinclined to violate our own rules to do that. But we do want to be able to run a road crew in the short term, and in the short term, we need that property. Item 10, lease renewal on Buck Hill Road property. We talked about this a little bit in our budget meeting. The small piece of property across the street here, owned by the town, acquired in a tax sale some time ago. The old blacksmith shop, I'm told.
Moon's Blacksmith Shop.
Whose?
Moon.
Okay.
M-O-O-N.
I love it. It's been leased by Dennis McCarthy for the housing unit on the corner to provide parking spaces. The property is for sale, and the lease is coming up for renewal.
Yes, and we did get a new lease proposal from them today.
Okay.
Not to interrupt, but it did.
Go ahead,
It did meet, from looking at it, does meet what our attorney said would be some of the things that should be added in. More specifically, if the property sells, if we sign this with Mr. McCarthy and the property sells, it continues on with the property, and the new owners can take the lease over from us, and they can run it for a few years. It has a part in here that allows us to park one truck on the property. I got this just this afternoon. Mr. McCarthy dropped one, and I got another copy. So I'll get this out to everybody so they can read it. And I'm going to just forward it to Wilmington's office and have them review it, and then we can decide whether or not we're going to renew the lease. But it does meet the things that Wilmington's office suggested that have in there. It includes some other things like allowing us to park one truck on the property. One vehicle, I believe it says, one vehicle, it doesn't say truck, but like I said, this came kind of late in the day and doesn't have a price set. There's another thing the board's going to have to decide how much we really want to rent this property for. It calls for 10 years. Again, it's a lot to go over right now, and I didn't have time to get it to everybody before tonight. So what I'll do is I'll scan it to everybody. You can read it. We can take it up December 1st, and we'll have an answer from Wilmington, and anything he suggests we add or delete from it or whatever, and we could probably take action on it at that meeting. We'd have a legal response. We'd have a little time to read it and a little time to think about how much we want to charge for the next 10 years, or if we want to make it for 10 years, which is all up to you. But it is, like I said earlier, I did do the numbers, went through the parking requirements for zoning, and there's really not much we can do. And for the 3 units there, it requires 6 spots, which is basically what is there. It says they'd allow us to put one vehicle on there, but it couldn't interfere with what they're using it for, so. I don't know if putting one vehicle there would help us that much anyway.
I think one of the things people were concerned about was what happens if the new owners don't do it the way that Mr. McCarthy had done it, but it says in there that either party can cancel the lease
Yes.
with 90-day notice
Mhm.
without cause.
Yes.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
if we aren't happy with it, 90-day notice, and we can end the lease.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, good. That was the thing I was looking up to try to remember what the attorney said, but I was thinking it was not that we wanted to necessarily make sure we conveyed the lease to the new owner, although we should do that, but that we had options if we don't like the new owner.
Yeah. And it does have that, we grant the lessee the right of first refusal if we ever decide to sell the property, so that they could buy it first.
Mhm.
And then a lot of the rest of it is, standard kind of things, no junk vehicles of the property, no waste, refuse, garbage, and things like that.
Okay.
Mr. McCarthy said that before the lease was $300 a month.
Yeah, it is $300 a year,
Or
not a
300, I'm
month.
sorry, $300 a year.
Yeah,
And, but like you said, it is not stated in that one, so it's up to us.
yeah, you'd have to, and the term, well, it says 10 years, but
Starting at such date.
January 2nd, 2015, the last payment shall be due and payable on January 2nd, 2025.
So, that was the last lease for 10 years?
Yeah, it was, yep,
And it was $300?
$300.
There may be some inflation. So we can talk about that too. We'll need to look that over.
Yeah, like I say,
Decide
it
at our
came
next
late.
meeting,
I didn't scan it to anybody today, but I'll scan it to everybody, because that's good to Wellington too, so we can all look at it, and he'll make suggestions, and we'll take up the monetary part when everybody has a chance to think about it.
Yeah. Grand list errors and omissions.
Okay, the first one is for the property of Trevor Mance. This is an error that was made. It really does not change the tax rate here. It has to do with the homestead. The changes did not change the overall value of the property. This will not result in any loss of tax revenue to the town. The owner's education taxes will be reduced, as the majority of his property will be taxed at the residential rate versus the non-residential rate. This is an issue they've discovered had been going on for several years. The town gets the same amount of tax dollars, but he gets to get it at the proper rate. It should have been homestead and residential, and apparently it wasn't.
Okay,
All right.
this is homestead up on Blueberry Hill, okay.
Yeah.
So what was it, what was he get a non-residential rate?
I guess, let me just,
Let's see, the issue, whether or not the select board will approve this correction to the 2014 grand list.
his homestead value was underestimated, and so was his house site value. There was actually two issues up here, and the errors had been in place since 2010, and the reappraisal, the homestead and house site allocations were not checked. Thus, the property's homestead and house site values were not calculated correctly. The recalculation, as I said, will just change really the residential rate versus the non-residential rate to make it more equal for him. It doesn't change anything with us at all.
I'm just curious what the error and omission is. Did they redo the stats on the lister's card?
Yeah, well, here, let me just read through that.
You want to read that for us?
Trevor Mance brought to our attention that there appears to be an issue with his assessment. Upon review of the lister's determined there are two allocation errors with his assessment. First, his homestead value was underestimated, and secondly, so was his house site value. We researched Trevor's record and found that the errors had been in place since 2010 reappraisal. Further review revealed that during the reappraisal, two items relating to the homestead and house site allocations were not checked. Thus, the property's homestead and house site values were not calculated correctly. When the two items were checked, the homestead and house site values calculated correctly. The change did not change the overall value of the property. This is, will not result in any tax loss revenue tax revenue loss to the town of Shaftsbury. Education tax will be reduced as a majority of his property will be taxed at the residential rate versus a non-residential rate. So basically, he was paying a non-residential rate on a certain percentage of his property or the whole property for the education. I'm just guessing, I don't know.
I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the amount of taxes that come to the town.
Right,
That's all that really that's
Yeah.
all that concerns us. So-
right. I'm just trying to get a handle on what's happened here. It's not that he just didn't file his homestead exemption, is it?
No, because that you can't get a waiver for. It was
Right.
calculated apparently improperly here. But there's two things going on with
So
the
he
house.
had a
site.
homestead exemption that we didn't
There's something
flag so that the school was taxing him at
at a different rate, yeah.
non-homestead rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it doesn't really change anything here at all. It's exactly the same.
Well, it doesn't say it's the same here, I mean, with the property values. Oh, so he's saying some parts of the,
The house site and the property are different.
yep, I understand that, homestead and the,
So it mentioned the
what's,
property being undervalued. Was that related to the checkbox with the homestead?
I would assume so. Again, this is an assessor thing because it didn't change the actual value as far as the town was concerned. Jim didn't think, these are some questions I can't answer. I don't think
Yeah.
Jim thought he'd need to be
Should-
here because it's not changing anything for the town. It's changing
Well-
things in Mr. Mance's filings, but not for us.
all right, I see differences, I don't know what the difference is here, I mean, is this something that should be going from the BCA?
No.
Because there's no, what's a special exempt, house site special exemption of $80,000? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something that we want to approve, but I don't quite understand it, so I'm
Yeah,
a little
If,
reluctant
Just a lot of understanding.
to go along until I understand exactly what happened.
the explanation I have is in the synopsis there.
Yeah,
Again, this is assessor's work, and I'm
sure.
not in a
yeah.
position to expand on it too much.
Yeah, is there any urgency about this, or could we postpone this until we can have the assessor
I
here to
could get
explain
Jim
it better to
to
us?
give us a better, more detailed explanation, and bring it back on the first.
Okay
Have him
with
come in and
everybody?
explain it to us, if he could come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just seeing, I mean, everything's same down here, and then you got the two different values here. I don't know, I can't figure it out.
I could easily bring it back and get a better explanation for it.
Yeah, I'm, like I say, we're
Then you
in
got
all,
these two.
most likely going to approve it, but I just like to know what I'm
Yeah.
approving before I do it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fine.
Unless someone wants to make a motion to do it now, I suggest we postpone it.
Okay, we have the second one. This is, Mr. Frank Stratton is a disabled veteran. As such, he is entitled in the state of Vermont statutes to a veteran's exemption to his property valuation. That exemption amounts to $40,000. This exemption was not properly processed by the state of Vermont's Department of Veteran Affairs. At this point in time, the only way the listers can obtain Mr. Stratton's exemption is through an errors and omission that has to be approved by the Select Board. A copy of Mr. Stratton's summary of benefits from the Department of Veterans Affairs retained in our files. It is not being added to the request as it contains confidential information. But Mr. Stratton, in the short, is a veteran who has had his property from a mistake with Veterans Affairs was not being given his discount. It does, as it says there, impact, it's a reduction in assessment. The impact is a loss of $143.48.
Okay.
And this one, I would have to say that if you need more details, you'll have to, we do have to have a closed thing because.
Is it
there's
10% reduction? Or
Well, it's,
15% or whatever?
I don't have a calculator, but it just went from 163.7 to 123.7.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently that's a statutory thing for a veteran's exemption, which for some reason, they didn't list, so.
Okay, well, that one I do approve. I make a motion that we approve the grand list correction for Mr. Stratton. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, so it is approved, the grand list correction for Mr. Stratton's property.
We need to sign the back.
This is 1117, right?
And that's it for the arrows and emissions.
All right.
Oh, sure. It's, okay.
All right, we are down to other business. How can it be? It's only 7:10.
Hallelujah.
Did we want to go back to the budget? Was there some, David, you could probably kind of walk us through what you're suggesting as changes to line items. We kind of went through my
Yeah, there's a few,
list quickly there at the top.
yeah. And this, of course, is the expense side, because Bill hasn't, we don't have the final numbers for this year, so we're not doing the revenues, although there wouldn't be any reason to suspect it'd be any less. Some of the major issues we're going to go through, some we can take up, because some have to do with personnel, we can take up in an executive session. The first one right off the bat, and this comes up in all of our categories with recording clerk. We're really combining that with other jobs, like Jen, who's the administrative assistant, is going to be the recording clerk for the select board. When I was ZA, I had started being the recording clerk for the DRB and the planning commission because it was just easier. And that's part of the new ZA's job. So that has been absorbed into the other payrolls. Mostly it's saving us money because the ZA was being paid to be at the meeting, and then we're paying somebody else there to be the recording secretary. And now the ZA, who basically prepares the meetings, is there recording, and it's just a lot easier and quicker. Going down just through the general government line, only a couple of things have actually gone up, and those were based mostly on just the current inflation rate. The CPI for this area is about 1.6% right now, so I just rounded up to 2%. Administration actually goes down about a little under 6%. Most categories stay exactly the same. There is health savings, a significant health savings in the administration, because I'm the only one who was getting it, I'm not taking it, which is because of another issue. In Cole Hall, the town offices, again, contract services have just, and these are all theoretical at this point because we don't have new figures for some of this, but just adding the CPI into them. The repairs and maintenance, I've dropped 5,000 because we are putting money into a fund for Cole Hall. We have enough to make a lot of repairs now. I think we can do it on a more program basis unless we really want to spend a lot of money. 20,000 a year for repairs and maintenance of the building should, over a few years, bring it up significantly. I mean, we have a nice sum to start, and I've talked to everyone in the building. We're going to start that after the general election because this is just way too busy a time to get into this. So in March, we're going to start spending a significant amount of the funds already here, and I think with the amount that goes into the fund for Cole Hall and with the maintenance, we can really, once we get the bad things done, we can start upgrading things and really start making it a little bit nicer. Utilities and all the utility columns, again, just using the cost of living index, the CPI for this area, I just put it up 2%. And that goes for fuels for vehicles also. Even though fuel is down significantly right now, I certainly have no faith that that's going to extend into the end of fiscal 16. So I think we just have to plan for it to be up. The capital improvement line on the Cole Hall stays the same, which is 0. Coal hold stays about the same. Elections and vital statistics, again, there's just some changes there that might have mostly to do with personnel. Everything else has stayed the same. There are reductions. There are less elections next year, so we reduced those amounts. You can see from poll worker wages have been cut in half, and machine equipment supplies elections has been reduced by 2,000. Again, because we don't have any major elections in fiscal 16. I'm going through the financing. I'm going to skip through financing because a lot of that I still have to talk to Bill about. The big things come up. The listers are also going to remain pretty much the same. I've talked, the big item there is with the assessor's contract, and I've sat down with Jim and Dina, and we've gone through all that, and that whole item will stay the same.
The listers, the wages, everything's the same. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I talked to Jim. Jim's paid an hourly rate. We don't see anything going above what's there now. The 5,900 is for the mapping service. It's the third year of the 3-year contract, I believe, is next fiscal year. So that's just finishing that up. There's nothing that can come off there. The rest of it is pretty much as minimal as you can get. The big one being computer and IT support, $1,000, and that's needed because the computers over there are used quite a lot. The wages for listers and all that remains the same. Public safety, animal control, I'm looking into this because we have a wage factor here. We have FICA and Medicare payments in there, and the wage is $600, and the whole contract for last year is $73.96. So I'm wondering if there wasn't a better way just to have this entire thing as a contract instead of having wages involved in it.
Well, that's, yeah, eventually over the period of time, you can see the listers' wages are going down and our professional services are going up. We could,
Sorry, I skipped down. I was down one below. But yeah, the listers are staying exactly the same, and they haven't even come close to their
yeah, we
amount
could
lately.
actually
Yeah.
the trend has being professional services taken over for the listers.
Pretty much, yeah. Jim's work is what's moving, the engine that's moving a lot of this along. There's no doubt about that.
Do we know how much they spent, what, $7,500 last year?
Yeah, on their wages, and,
Save some money, you could probably reduce that, but
yeah, that's an item that we can look at when I get the amount for this quarter up here. Let me see if I have it right here, because I started putting a few things away. Let me do that. I lost my little part. Here it is. And so far to date, the listers' wages are at $26,8750, 22% of the budget for this year. So the average budget line should be about 38% now. So they're already behind that. It's hard to say where that is. I just left it flat for now. And this is just the first
That's
run
fine.
through anyway. The rest of it pretty much the same. And part of this is when you look into fiscal 16, because we're still talking about after July 1st, with the continued inflation, this is actually somewhat of a decrease in the amount they'll have to spend on things. So there'll have to be some trimming in some areas anyway, because the cost of everything will be a little bit more. For public safety, as I was saying, I just don't know, the animal control, we have this little wage package and this even much smaller FICA and Medicare. I'm just wondering if it might be best to look at, this is just a complete separate contract. We just contract with someone to be the ACO, to run animal control and not be involved with wages at all.
I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't really understand the split there. Who are we paying the contract to? And who are the
Contract is with Riebenholzer Kennels, which is Tracy Mulligan's business. But she also gets this somewhere, and I'm not sure where either. Somewhere there was a transition from paying her
yeah, it's all
and
the
it
same.
becoming a contract with Riebenholzer. But we have this teeny amount left over which, causes, now we have an employee for $600 a year that we're paying FICA and Medicare, and it's kind of,
Yeah.
it's an odd thing.
I think the,
I think it just should be
It might be
removed.
a state requirement that we have an animal control officer.
We do, it is a state requirement, but I don't know if it
Has to be
has to be
Employee or,
an employee or a contract.
oh, okay.
Not sure, but this is something that I do want to look into for this, because it would be nice to just have this one column or another. Either you're an
Yeah.
employee or you're a contractor, not,
split the difference.
yeah, and, there's implications with wage too, of, having all kinds of responsibilities, disability, everything, so it's just something that I want to look at. I don't know if it will save any money or just simply clean up this item here, and see what its ramifications are in the town. Emergency management, again, pretty much the same. The chief, I'll let the fire chief, when he comes in, speak about his. So I went through this with the fire chief. The big increase here, he would like to, is in the firehouse maintenance, the re-siding of Station 2 out on Old Depot. He thinks it's pretty much well overdue, and he wanted to get $5,000 more in that budget to do that, which I think is doable. It's certainly something that we could add in there. Again, utilities, fuel, I've just been using the 2% to move that up. It puts the fire department budget up in total about 10% for next year. He had discussed adding a little increase to the fire truck reserve budget for $45,000, because apparently one year, the $40,000 wasn't put in, he told me. That's something we can get into when we get into the whole amount of debt we're carrying for vehicles. Because a lot of that is freeing up in a couple of years, it might be better to add a little more on in a couple of years when we have more available. Right now, this year, fiscal 16 with the new truck is going to put us over $251,000. And after fiscal 16, at least 2 or 3 of those drop off. I sent that around, and then it gets even less. So it gives a lot of opportunity to restructure a lot of this and to catch up. If that fire payment was missed a year, we could catch up with that when there's a lot more free money around. But right now, at 251, I think it is, it's a lot. It's a lot.
So what we need to see is equipment replacement schedules
Yeah,
for the
Everything.
road crew and for the fire trucks, and then we know how much we need to save each year.
yeah, and I like, as Art was mentioning earlier in the year, when this opportunity comes up, when these start paying off in huge amounts, you have an opportunity to start building funds, to put more money down, so you're not financing as much. There was a truck, this whole thing, the town equipment replacement schedule in years done here. There was a general survey, non-scientific survey of towns in the state about how often they replace their trucks and things, and I understand that we were trying to get on a 7-year replacement schedule with our road vehicles and that. Other towns have them for more, other towns, few towns have them for less than 7, but it's something we need to look into and project out. Can we get more years out of the trucks? Can we do something to have them last as long as some other towns last? These are huge ticket items now. This new truck is $176,000. That's a big, expensive road truck. But again, it's things we need to look into. And we have a couple other priorities that we'll address, and I'd rather have Terry here when we talk about that in the budget hearing with highways. He has a truck he wants to replace. We also have a mower that needs work, or is in some state of disrepair out there. So we have a few things to discuss there.
Is that the mower that we had fixed this summer?
Yeah, well, I believe we've had
We
that.
had it fixed. I mean, did it get used and broken again, or weren't we supposed to, I thought we were supposed to sell that.
Because I came in late summer, I may not know parts of the story.
We put it back together with the understanding we would only use it for just a little.
Light duty.
Jobs, and we borrowed North Bennington's. They went and they sold it after we got through with it, so.
So it's sold now? No, North Bennington
North
sold?
Bennington sold theirs, so we don't have the luxury of using that next year unless they buy another one and we
Yeah,
can use
But
that.
didn't we say we were gonna sell this one? Wasn't part of that
Yes.
whole conversation, we were gonna sell this and get some money, either go for a contract or buy
This
a
thing
new
out
one?
here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It would be valuable to somebody as a tractor,
Not as a mower.
not as a mower, yep.
okay. Well,
Didn't
that's
have a
something,
dry clutch on it.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Those are some of the things we need to look into, and again, when we have the highway meeting, which will be a separate meeting than all of them, we'll sit down, we'll discuss some of these things, because mowing, that is a big question. Do we go buy a mower? Do we contract out like has been done before? If that is the status of the mower out here, that's to be sold, and then we will need to do that. And if there's any purchasing of equipment, a mower to do the roadsides in this town is going to be an expensive piece of equipment.
That's right.
So that would be the priority purchase for the year.
I know there was talk about keeping the mower, because they like the mower, the arm, the reach,
Yes.
everything else. And to get rid of the tractor and get another tractor they could use the same attachment for. And I thought he looked at he was looking at a couple used tractors out of that magazine that he has. But that's the last I heard of it.
And he
I
found
thought
a
it was
loader.
gone.
Found a loader instead.
Found the loader
The
instead.
load is coming tomorrow, so,
I was gonna say.
weather permitting, the load is coming tomorrow. If it only turns on.
And that one's going tomorrow?
Oh, no, that one's not going. We might be stripping that one to put parts on the new one. But apparently, as scrap period, it's worth a lot, and the axles apparently are worth a lot on it. So we'll recoup at least part of the money that's gone into the old one. And whatever you can look at it either way. Will we recoup some money for that one, or what we sell will pay everything that we're spending to get the new one? So the new one's kind of a wash, however you look at it. The first one's not so much, but. Law enforcement, I have not heard back from law enforcement. I did just put an increase on just as an estimate for the sheriff's services for fiscal 16.
I think we need it.
For cost of living or more services, are we talking?
No, the addition I put on for the sheriff's services was just a estimate of an increase in the overall cost, not for more hours. More hours would be a substantial amount more. But that's something certainly that can be addressed, and alternatives to that. That's something if we want more hours, we can certainly find money to put in for more hours.
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think we should be considering more hours. Almost all the complaints are speeding on the back roads or speeding. So if we post the roads legally, then we've got some enforcement that we can.
I did, just speaking of speeding, I did have an email exchange with the sheriff last week to get the speed sign back by Dunham and White Creek, and our directed patrols down there for speeding. I also asked them to put it out on East Road, because I had complaints about East Road, and to have some directed speed radar patrols out that way too. But yeah, we can certainly add hours in. I can work up a new number. Yeah, I'll just work up a new number for that. We'll have some alternatives to see where we want to go with it. So we'll skip down through the first part of Public Works, 'cause most of that is. Let's see. The construction and maintenance budget, and again, this is all preliminary, but if we do move the 97,150 here, which is a sidewalk grant, we can fund all of these increases for the same tax dollar. It would give us more money for signs, which we definitely need more signs, and we're unfortunately getting a lot of signs stolen. It's becoming quite an expensive thing. But we need all new safety signs for the road crew. These have to be brought up to this federal standard. And there's just other signs that we're talking about, speed signs. There's the signs that we want to put on Dunham Road for the curve ahead, the area the gentleman was complaining about. And 6,000, I think, is a good number, 4,500. With the amount of signs being stolen, frankly, these street signs, and they're quite big now, it's getting a little expensive. I just got a bill for $400 for replacing nothing but street signs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, and and one goes, and I hear about the phone call rings, the street sign's gone, someone couldn't find my house last night, and, it's expensive. Tree removal, I just thought that should go up, because I always think there's one more tree to be removed. If there's dangerous trees by the roadside that wind up costing us more money in the long run by waiting for them to fall in the road. And just like what they're doing as an example over on Holy Smoke Road, it's just more money to trim the trees back, to hire a service when needed, and to just clean up the roads a lot more. And again, we can add on to all the paving. I just put up 2,000.
Yeah, I might pick nits with you on the
Yeah.
tree removal, just looking at the speckled bits on my spreadsheet are what was actually spent before, and we haven't in the last 2 years spent 4,000 on tree removal.
Yeah, which I don't,
If we spend what we budgeted, we still got more than 1,000 more than we've been spending.
well, that's true too. This year, let me see where we are this year. Although I have 3 tree bills down on my desk, so they're not in here.
How does that work? Is tree removal when they hire somebody to take it down, or when the crew goes out and they spend a day working someplace and he comes back in and says, well, 50% of our time was
No, that's,
taking down trees? Is that?
no, that would be a contractor's fee. That would be hiring someone like,
Legacy or...
I forget the gentleman who's doing Holy Smoke Road, but.
Biddy? Michael Biddy or something like
No,
that?
I might be. I don't
Okay,
recall the
but
name.
anyway, so you keep them separate, so there is.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, the road crew time
His road crew time.
isn't worked into these numbers.
Road crew time is not.
Yeah, like if these guys, it's like the same thing when they were working on White Creek Road. That wasn't really put into the numbers, which is one of the problems with
Yeah,
how we
okay.
look at capital work. It's
So the proposed thing is only contracted,
contract work.
okay?
See, this year we have,
And with Barry getting all his people certified with a chainsaw, he's been doing all that himself mostly.
well, they take a lot of stuff down themselves, and what they take down is a lot of the smaller trees, things that are gonna be causing problems in the future. They can
Okay.
go through a lot of that. Even when they're out working on some of the roads, they have to trim things back just to get it back in the road, so they're not hitting the trucks and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is inaccurate, because I have bills on my desk. Tree removal this year is $96, but I can tell you it's well over
Dave,
that
have
way.
they ever tried, like, contacting Comcast or Green Mountain Power, where you have trees that's gonna affect the town, Green Mountain Power and Comcast, that you could get a deal that everybody would share on taking the trees down?
I don't know, but I know that for the most part, when Green Mountain and that, they hire contractors that go around, and they'll trim the trees from the wires.
Okay.
And they normally do it on a cycle passing through towns. So they would just be trimming back to keep away from the wires. I don't know if there's ever been any like joint thing. I don't know how much they want their crews getting involved in something other than what they're specifically
Well,
contracted.
I did it when I was road foreman, and it worked
Yeah.
pretty good.
Well, we'll look into it. I'm not familiar, and I'd have to check with Terry to see if that's come up since he's been here. I couldn't speak to that.
Because, I mean, when them trees, some certain, you can't do it everywhere, but there's certain places that it affects everybody,
Oh, absolutely.
and it's to everybody's benefit to get it out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we could look into that.
Yeah.
I'd have to check with Terry. Maybe he has looked into it already, and it's not something they're doing now.
Yeah.
But I can check with them.
Okay.
And paving, I just put up a couple of thousand, just because there were some things to address more potholes and more parts of the road that are breaking up, to more sealing and things like that.
That's separate from the paving reserve. fund,
Separate
right?
than the paving reserve fund, yeah, this is just
Yep.
fixing stuff,
Gotcha.
you know? Sometimes things happen and even parts of the road breaks off, you just wanna be able to repair things. Gravel, I just put up because we will have this money free, put that up 10,000. Gravel goes pretty quickly, and it's needed on a lot of the roads to firm them back up. Chloride, I also raised that,
So
so
it looks
that,
like we're a little over this, or
you're way over,
13 we were over.
yeah, by $11,000.
We don't know how we're doing this year.
Gravel this year, and this
Previous
is,
year gravel was underspent.
and this year we're up to 17,077 on gravel, and I know that does not include a few things that went to If you go, well,
No,
on mine,
the-
capital projects is listed as 201% right now. It was done at 19,000 and it's in at 38,000. Some of the bills that came through were coded wrong. And they all went to capital projects when a lot of it should have been gravel for other roads, so I'm straightening that out. So 17,000, they're over that in gravel already this year. And, we have the construction season coming up. The capital improvements budget is also going to be over for this year. Murphy Road took a lot more gravel and things than was planned, I believe.
Okay.
And chloride, sorry.
Terry once made the comment to me that the amount of money for chloride, now, I don't know if it was this budget or which one it was, but would only do all the roads once. So I don't know if that's still true or if he's, so we need to talk to him about that.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the plan that I've discussed with him, whether it's grading, chloriding, where the chloride goes, and a better plan. $36,000 or $40,000 worth of chloride is a lot of chloride.
But
And,
it is expensive.
It is expensive, yeah, it is expensive. But,
Well, last year he didn't, last year they didn't use it all.
last year they
And-
didn't, yeah.
And, 18, they allocated 34 and they used 18.
18.
This year they allocated 36, so they're probably gonna use it because we used last, or how much more did we use this year than normal?
This year, up to now, we've used just about 38% of the budget, 13,825 has been spent.
Yeah, that's right. We gotta remember, we got next spring to go.
Yeah, next spring to go through. And could we have used more in the fall and the summer? Because I know in the brief end of the summer I was here, I got a lot of phone calls about, could we put some chloride down? Last year, I don't have an explanation why I went 34 and only 18.6 was spent. The year before, they
Wet
budgeted
summer.
34 and 33 was spent, so.
Wet-
I guess
wet
so, yeah,
summer.
wet summer, yeah. So it's kind of unpredictable, but 4,000 probably would be absorbed in the market increase for it. It's, if you even did the inflation on it, it would be pretty close to that. Next line is winter salt. That's up 8,000 this year already, over last year. So I put this up to 12.2 because by winter fiscal 16, it's going to be up again. It's a ballpark guess, but it went up 8,000 over the projected budget for this year.
So right now we're at 45,000?
Well, right, this year, yeah, it was budgeted at 37, so yeah, we're in about $45,000. If, of course, we use the 596 ton we used last year. Again, weather's unpredictable, but if we bought the same amount we bought last year, it's gonna cost us $8,000 more. And if the price goes up again next year, which I have a feeling it will, I think we might as well have some cushion in the budget to absorb that.
It all comes back.
Yeah, and then again, you know what, we could be sitting here with the 80 tons over in the other shed and we have to move it, it's impossible to predict, but you have to have it available. Winter sand, the same thing. I just moved that up marginally. Leveling and sealing, I think that should go up because it's a way of preserving our paved roads. And, can't let things go by because paving costs a fortune.
Do you know how, they usually buy that by the pallet,
Yes,
and so if we're gonna increase it, we ought to increase it by how much a pallet is. So
Yeah.
it doesn't end up with having to get half a pallet or something like that.
I can look into that, about how it's
Okay.
done, because we spent this fall $1,514.
That's not the labor or anything, that's just the materials. is that
Materials,
right?
yeah, because we did that with Norm, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was just materials for us.
It seems to me, Norm said it was, that we each just got one pallet, could have used more, or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
that's the way I remember it
This
too.
is ceiling material we're talking
Yes. And then, I guess, who has the machine? Do they rent that, or does?
I think he gets that from somebody.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a 5-gallon heater that sprays it on?
He has a nice little piece of equipment over there for that. I'm not, I don't think it's his, but it's,
Paving.
got it from some, yeah. The next one would increase the rentals by 4,000 with the idea of renting a roller more often to compact the roads. The roads that really need the work, and the roads we're gonna spend on new stone and grading and everything, if they're packed, it works out nice. It worked out nice on, I think it was Murphy Hill. That came out pretty nice, and it was rolled. Wherever they're rolled, they will stay better.
How much did we spend this year on that, do you know? I mean, last few years we haven't spent, but I mean, if it's something that.
Well, we've rented
improves the product.
1,066 so far this year, but I don't have a breakdown for what all that is, because we get trucks too. When they're moving lots of material, they'll rent some trucks, and a driver would make sense. It's, you can,
Get more done.
if you're moving a heavy equipment to do a job, it's better that the trucks keep showing up so that everything keeps moving. If they had to do it themselves and use their own trucks and stop and go get stuff and drag on. Culverts, just stayed the same. Capital improvements, which are not whether or not this stays here or gets moved to its own line. I did increase that because, again, we do have the 97, we can look at doing more in the way of capital improvements, expand a little bit. Something like Airport Road is gonna cost a good chunk of money, I believe, to do that properly. And
Almost.
frankly, $9,500 doesn't go that far in this stuff, so.
The deal is providing the material.
Yeah, well, if they.
Some material.
Some material.
Yeah.
And even at that, that's all well and good, because then we could move on to something else, because there's kind of a list of things, and it'd be nice to get to the point where we're more at the proactive than the reactive stage of some of these things. But that's gonna take some time. Let's see. I guess the next part, highway equipment and maintenance, just go over that. The individual line items, I'm sorry.
Total highway construction and maintenance still managed to come down with?
Yeah, less 45, 450,
Oh,
because the
of that-
sidewalk is in there.
Because of sidewalk, okay,
sidewalks.
yeah, mental arithmetic again, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's just a huge thing that was in the general fund that makes it look like a lot more was spent there.
So really, I mean, we're increasing it by $50,000, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the maintenance fund, so these individual things, instead of trying to calculate them out, and so we're gonna spend $1,000 on this, or $1,000 on that. We have 19 vehicles, total up with a little increase is $27,825 for maintenance on the vehicles. I can't give you the specifics on the tires I put on here, but we do need some new tires for some of the larger equipment. And so, put in about 8,000 for tires to replace, I think,
Tires are up significantly.
yeah, and I can't remember exactly which one Terry told me, but I think it's one of the graders, and those tires are very expensive, and it's just something you just have to do. But in total, that area goes down 11% also, even with that. Again, gas and oil,
It says plus 11%.
sorry, plus 11%, yeah, sorry, I'm subtracting in the wrong places. That's plus 11%. And again, oil and gas, I just put up 2%. It's down now, but next year it won't be. The garage, I had a question on the first line that I forgot to ask about, the 3,000 for professional services. I'm not quite sure what that is. Repairs and maintenance.
May have been, that may have been related to building a new garage.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
$60,000 or
yeah.
$20,000.
I mean, the year before, only $59 was spent on it.
That's,
And then they budgeted again 3,000 for this fiscal year. So I just, I'm not quite sure what that's, what that's supposed to be for.
for the engineer, and the whole
Yeah, well,
blueprints and everything else.
There could be a whole number of things that
That's what
we can straighten that out when we have Terry
Yeah.
and go through that. The repair and maintenance, because we're not gonna be getting a new town garage anytime soon, we do have to maintain this, and 5,000, I think I'm gonna be blowing through that pretty quickly after VOSHA comes in a week. So I think 10,000 to maintain this in the interim, is also gonna go pretty quickly. Let's see.
We don't know that for sure yet. We don't.
Well,
What was the talk about adding an addition on the street
well,
side?
yeah, what we were talking about there, and was taking the end part here, moving out, putting a little addition on the end here so that Terry's office could be moved out here and the break room could be moved out here to move
It would be
everyone
up.
away from the equipment and away from everything inside.
The smoke and everything.
Yeah, after VOSHA comes, we'll see how that goes, but if it's not to the front, I could even see moving something to the back, whether it's just as simple as a construction trailer just parked in the back, especially if the property becomes ours, it's no longer an issue, we could just have it there. Along with, they are gonna build the shed we had talked about on our property off the back to move some of
They're
the,
just gonna enclose that.
yeah.
It's just cold
Yeah,
storage.
it's just, it's cold storage, just enclosing it so we can move some of the things in there. But I think after the inspection, whether it's required or not, it's something we should pick up again and look at.
Well, that would require a DRB review if you're gonna expand the footprint.
Well, if we put a trailer out the back,
Well, that's,
we wouldn't have to do anything. We could hook a wire up to it. But yeah, that's the other problem with the front. If we, because again, and I believe in this too, we got to follow our own. If we wanted to put this as a non-conforming use out here, so the trailer wouldn't be an issue, and it's almost, that one would almost have to be, if it's an issue of employee safety or health, I would say that's something that the town could just simply do. We could put a trailer there for the employee's safety and health, and go like that. Much different than building the thing out front, because the more I thought about that, we'd have to take the trees down, we'd be moving the footprint further towards the road, and that gets to be,
what's one of those trailers go? I don't even know.
we could get one off the Army surplus for nothing. No.
$2,500.
Send that truck back to Maryland. But those can be, I mean, you can rent them, they're not much. And if we need more cold storage, if the property's ours, you can get, frankly, a container out of
Pod.
the Port of Albany for like nothing.
Pod.
Yeah, don't get a pod, they can be expensive, but you get a container, just a used one.
Yeah.
Buy it for a couple $100.
I don't
put it in
think
the
that's a
back.
town, I don't really think that's a look we're going for, but
Well, we can buy a shrubbery and put it in. No one will see it. But no, it isn't, but in the short term, it might fill a need, you know.
Exactly. There's a difference in my mind between
Yeah,
doing something in the short term to
Yeah.
protect the employees
yeah, exactly,
versus,
yeah.
building
long term.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm
Building
talking about. If, to get these guys out from where everything's going on, so they can sit somewhere and have their lunch in between working on the trucks. And if Terry can move out, so actually it'd be beneficial to knock his office out, because he has more room to get a truck in. Because that end of the building is several feet shorter than the other end, so it would be helpful. And, if you're in there, the table is like at the tailgate of a truck, so it's certainly not anything great. So if that's something we could do, and again, it would be temporary. Obviously, it's not something, it's the interim between now and whenever the new garage gets built. But like I said, when VOSHA comes and they go through the building, I'm sure we'll have to change some things. But I think it's essential. If we're going to have employees, we're going to have people working, then we have to make sure it's the right environment. Let's see. The rest of that pretty much stays the same. I did put in an amount for small equipment, chainsaws, just small tools that I know I've already signed, approvals for the purchasing of these small tools, and it's just making a clearer budget line for it. It's like, if we're buying wrenches, we'll put it here. If we're buying this, we'll put it here. Otherwise, those things tend to get lost in the overall budget, and you can't find them. The whole highway subtotal, with all those changes, still drops 2%. Then the other big area where I'd like to do some things are the solid waste facility, and just skipping down to the management contract. A lot of these numbers are frankly pure guesswork at this time. The management contract with TAM expires June 30th of fiscal 15. It's renewable annually for 3 years. I have a call in to see where we're going with it. But I did just put in an amount to give some idea of where it might go. There are a number of things that probably going to come up with Act 148 and the new alliance we're going to have, so I did increase the number of line items along there. Let's see, the solid waste removal fee, I increased that by 5%. Again, that's a guess, but all this stuff is getting more expensive. More things are going to have to be separated.
Why did the methane monitoring, are we going to change, is Bill not going to do that anymore? Or?
Bill does not do that.
Okay, so.
Currently, Shelley's done it, I've done it, Margie's done it. When I was in Sunderland has a contract, Casella runs the whole thing, and Casella monitors the methane and everything, and they have it professionally done. To me, I would just like to investigate having this put onto KAS, who also does the water monitoring, and have them do the methane monitoring, and start a better documented trail of this system, and calibrating the equipment and the whole 9 yards, because it's, to me, landfill is a liability issue, and we want to make sure that everything is done correctly. It seems very simple until it's no longer simple, and you have an issue, and then it kind of troubles me. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone at KAS or some other engineering firm will tell me I'm wrong, but that figure is kind of out of thin air, and it may not hold at all. I mean, it may be 1/10 that, it may be so much that I'll go take a lesson in methane gas monitoring, but I want to investigate having this done, nuts and bolts, from KAS doing the water well testing to methane testing, and just have this on a more professional level. I have no reason not to say I'm an amateur when it comes to methane and the testing, and I don't understand the science behind the meter that's testing it, and it's not, it always comes up 0, which is good, but yeah, it's just one of those things I'd like to investigate a little bit more.
I think it's worth looking into. I've been out with Margie doing the methane testing, and it seems like it works, but, if Bill Pennebaker got hit by a bus and we got into some sort of litigation about methane at the landfill, there's nobody here that could defend
Yeah.
what we're doing. All we know is that we push this button and hold
Yeah.
it here and then write down the number. So I think
Yeah.
having professional services there is worth looking into.
Yeah, and that's the part that
It's a
troubles me.
third party, too.
Right.
It's a third party,
Yeah.
It's to our advantage to kind of lie in the thing, in a way, so, or somebody could say that.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a third party.
Yeah, it's a professional, it would be a professional engineering firm. I would imagine that would be the one who would get it, similar to KS doing the water. And, yeah, just, here's all the documents, these are the backgrounds to do it. I can see myself on the thing, what's your background in this? You push the button and the thing beeps, and, it's, yeah, I think it's just a better way of doing it. The system works fine now, and it's, the meter works and all that, but there's a level of discomfort for me with this, that someone with a better background in it would be better. And the rest of this, there's just some increments otherwise. The BCRC, hate to say it, but the SWIP plan seems to go up every year, so I'm sure it'll cost more money in fiscal 16. Everything else pretty much stays
No, I don't
the
think
same.
that's the goal of an Act 158 is to make waste cost more.
Yeah, although I think that's where it's headed.
148, I should say.
The only thing that's cut completely is the mowing, because we did that with no cost this year. I don't want to say the wrong town mowed it for us, so I wouldn't say which town it was, but we had loaned them some equipment and they mowed it, so.
Great.
It worked out fine. I don't see any reason why we can't do that. Again, the mower, we had this thing, they were all concerned because it gets a little top heavy with the boom, and I don't blame them, because parts of that are steeper than it looks.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, so the mowing will be off. We'll just figure a way every year to do that. You know, the bids we got were very high to mow that thing, you know? And it was only mowed once this year, and it's really, really fine. I was just up there, I guess, 3 weeks ago.
Did you know if they filled in the holes?
Yep.
They all filled in that we were.
Yeah, well, that's part of,
They'll
that
process
guy's
it.
annual inspection. He
Yeah.
comes around and marks the holes, and,
I was probably one of the markers last spring.
Yeah, yep, two of the road crew went out, and he was basically filling it with dirt and whatever, so filled it up, keep the little critters out.
We don't have a requirement to mow it twice? Because we've mowed it twice in the past.
Yeah, they had been
We
mowed,
had mower problems. issues.
yeah. Well, I can check. I know there were malfunctions before I came on, so I just got mowed once. If there is a requirement, we just got the recertification. I don't remember seeing other than maintaining the cap, that there was a specific requirement for 2 mowings. It might just be better generally to mow it twice. But we can work that out one way or the other.
Yeah, we should check that.
And hazardous household waste day, I put another 2,000 on that. It's 20,000 this year. It was almost, last year, the previous fiscal year was budgeted for 16, the bill came in at 19,440. So we budgeted 20,000 this year. I don't have the numbers on that yet, but I wouldn't really expect a great decline in that. Yeah, this year, the only thing we have down is we spent $90 on it, but I can guarantee you we spent way more than that.
I'm sorry, where are we now?
Hazardous household waste days, it's the last item under
Yep.
solid waste.
334.
So overall, the solid waste landfill tentatively goes up like 8% for the year. Streetlights, we could be looking at half that amount. If we, efficiency Vermont, and we change all the bulbs, it could drop, you know, quite a bit. But I don't want to anticipate any of that, because if it doesn't get done, we'll have to pay the same amount.
But, we've contacted them already, right?
Oh, yeah, they're doing the inventory, and Green Mountain Power does the inventory. They have to provide the inventory to me and to Efficiency Vermont, and then we take each step, it's from there. But it's underway, but I don't want to change that unless we have something solid in writing that's done. Parks and Rec, I have to talk to the committee when we're meeting with them on Monday. So generally, this is just a personnel issue here, that the rest of it is unchanged. I did up the equipment maintenance to keep the old tractor going for another year. And there was 1,500 in the capital improvements for this year, so I just left it in for next year too. Cemetery, I spoke with Ken about that, and that is pretty much staying exactly the same. Planning and development,
Do we have a multi-year contract with them?
with, for the mowing?
Yes. for
Yes,
the
and I
cemetery.
think there's another year on with the Sycamore contract.
Yeah, you got a 3-year.
Yeah,
Second
yes.
year of a 3-year deal.
Yeah, yeah. Planning and development, I haven't been asked for any changes in these. If something comes up, we can adjust some of this. But there's really savings in this, as I said earlier, with the recording clerk now being the ZA, we moved those from both planning and from the DRB. And I think that works out for everybody. The ZA's pay doesn't need to be adjusted, the amount allocated to that. From having done it for 9 months, I wasn't going to come close to that figure. But I don't want to change it, because now there will be a full year of doing the recording clerk too. So there's a few more hours involved, but I think it will easily cover that. Community appropriations, I didn't even touch, because that's not anything I have anything to do with.
Right.
County taxes, I didn't change either, because it's kind of unpredictable at this stage. The transfers to reserves, I also didn't change anything in that, thinking that most all these should be just funded at this level again.
Is the garage in there?
Garage is in there for 75,000 again, which would build that in just from this year and next year to 150 for that. There might be some changes to as we think about this, we might want to add a new fund to put some money in, whether it's a paving fund or put some more money aside for special projects, so we might want to up that a little bit.
We do have, well, there's a paving fund,
Yeah, it's not much of a paving fund.
25,000.
Yeah, you know, the town's part of the White Creek was $31,500. Now, if that's great when we get these grants, because the state paid 128 or 9,000 of that.
80% of it,
Yeah.
or 90, I don't know.
But, you know, there are roads that are gonna need work, and these grants aren't always gonna be available. You know, it's selective. So I think it might be advisable to consider just bulking that up a little bit more, so that we can address when a road starts breaking up, we can do something about it before it really falls to pieces, especially on some of the lesser roads. White Creek's good because it was Class 2 road, and we're not gonna get money for some of the other roads.
Wasn't there talk about White Creek going the rest of the way?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, we're not done with that either, because there was talk of us doing that to the state line.
Right.
But then we have East Road, which is in very bad shape, and, not very bad, but needs to be worked on. From what I got from the material downstairs, the plan was to go for that again next year, and not for phase, I guess, 2 or 3, whatever it is, of White Creek. And of course, the other big thing we're trying to get done is the culvert up on Shaftsbury Hollow. So I was looking at the priorities for grants, at least being East Road for a paving grant, and Shaftsbury Hollow for the culvert grant. And we'll see where that goes. And the paving for East Road, if I remember, would be from a few hundred yards north of Buck Hill towards 7. I don't know if it goes all the way to where it turns to dirt. I don't remember if it goes that far. That would be pretty far, you know. But we'll see, you know, if we get that. And even if we do get a grant on those, we're gonna need more than $25,000 to match our end, so. Okay. So transfers to reserves, coal hall, 10,000 again. Equipment reserve, they're all the same as they were last year. Which, you know, it keeps it at 182. And the last big item for the town is the debt service expenditures, which do go up this year because of the new highway truck. They go from $244,787 to $251,934, which is why I'm a little reluctant to get into buying anything that isn't a necessity for this year. I had the table that showed that these were going down significantly over the next couple of years. Once we get out of fiscal 16, 3 of these payments drop off, and it really allows us to start putting money aside. Most all of them will be paid off in a few years. Yeah, I had sent that out. Let me see if I have that here. I misplaced it.
So we're 250 this year, 166 in 2017, 75 in 18, 75 in 19, and 38 in 20.
Yeah, and we're done. And that money, as it frees up, can start to being put aside for future purchases, for other funds. We can start doing that without raising taxes. We can look at having a more programming again and replacement of vehicles. But yeah, this year, I mean, we'll talk about who would like a vehicle and whether that's something we want to get into. As I said, with it hitting 251 and nothing coming off in fiscal 16, any new purchase is going to put us, you know, we're up to, I mean, we would have to put that, the 30,000 line that I took off up here, which was the down payment, we'd have to put that back in. So we'd be going from 251 to 281. And that's going to be a lot.
Someone looking for a new vehicle?
Well, there's, the 1 ton in the garage is a 2006. By this schedule, the replacement schedule that they had talked about, the 1 tons on this average come up to being replaced 7.66 years. Is it a necessity? We'll when Terry comes in, we can talk about that, his point of view on it, and,
That's
Then-
a backup to what he drives?
no, that's actually it's used for part of paving and sanding these paved streets.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure I've seen
it has, it has a different function, but again, can we get another year out of this, another 2 years out of it before we start financing yet another vehicle? And we have a mower issue that has to be decided, because we have to have something that mows, whether we're gonna buy one, lease one, or whatever. We have an expense coming up with that, so, we'll just have to see. Like I said, when Terry comes in, we can hear about the 1 ton, but, you know, it's just another cost line here. And is that the priority vehicle, or the mower? If we're gonna buy a mower, if we're talking about a used mower, there's just so many things to look into. You know, we can get a used tractor for X amount of dollars. We bought a used mower in another town, and it started costing us money like right away. So, you know, it's back and forth. I know they like the arm on this one. It seems to work very well. Those are a lot of things. I think when Terry's here, it's a better time to have him to explain the whole thing. Overall, with this, and we can come in at, it's not on this form. Bought the wrong form. But about $8,000, $9,000 less at this stage of looking at the budget than last year. The key thing is allocating that sidewalk grant out of the operating budget and into, or the general fund budget, and into a special fund where it'll just sit until we're ready to do that project. And that may not be in this fiscal year. It could be, you know, next August it starts.
Well, it wouldn't matter, it would be there waiting for it.
And if it was in that special fund, it's just gonna sit there, and as soon as we can get everybody together, and as soon as it gets designed, we can start going. And whether we start spending money out of it for design, it's still just coming out of that fund. It doesn't have to be looked at.
Wasn't it designed? Didn't we have a?
Well, there's construction design now.
Yeah.
There's design, I have diagrams of all kinds of things now with the easements being done, but then there's the construction planning and design, and, you know, there's fees for engineers, there's fees for KS, yeah, it's just the way it goes. But again, I'd rather be writing those checks out of the sidewalk fund than out of the highway department's maintenance budget. It just doesn't seem to be in the right place.
Right.
Is there any chance, Dave, of state rules changing that would change the design of the sidewalk?
Actually, I was on the phone with Kristen, and I apologize, I forgot her last name. She's just taken over for John Labarge on the project. And she was saying that it was being reviewed for a right-of-way change with the state. So I don't know the depth of that, whether it's an inch or two, or whether they're looking at something else, but.
Yeah, because you could have some bureaucrat sitting up here, oh, God, I think that ought to be a foot wider.
Yeah, well, that's part of the process, and that's what's going on, and something is being looked at again up there, and as soon as we get the easement back, the signed easement back from Trevor Mance, because we've had that reviewed by Wilmington already, we'll send that up to KAS, and we'll move to the next step, which is the actual construction
Yeah.
planning, and making sure that all the state engineers are on board with it.
Right.
And that's Kristen who's doing that up at the state level. So, yeah, it just goes on.
Yeah.
But it would be, hopefully, this will be the last summer, and it'll get done. Can't promise, but
Yeah.
that would be the goal.
Who would have thought a sidewalk was so hard?
Yeah. This is a very long sidewalk project.
All right,
That's the general overview.
any questions, comments about the budget so far? I think the next question is, when do we start meeting more
Well,
often to start fleshing it out?
December 1st,
Okay.
I would like to start having the department heads in, starting at 5 o'clock to 6:30.
Yeah.
I've sent emails out and spoken to a few personally. the 15 minutes to whatever, to come in and present their cases, or just to discuss, what we need to do. The highway department, we might do on a different date, maybe the 15th, and just have Terry in, because that's the longer one.
Biggest one.
Yeah, so, and then we could take it from there. We could add a special night, or we could just work into these meetings, the other topics we're talking about, whether we're gonna have a special fund. We have to have Bill in too, to have the other end of the revenue end of this. I think he'll pretty much have a lot of that available for the meeting on the 1st. It's calming down, the taxes are all in, and he can make up a better projection for this. But originally on the planning that Margie had out, there was a special budget meeting that could take place on the 24th, next Monday. If anyone thinks we need to do that, or we could wait till the 1st so we have a chance to talk to all the department heads and then take it from there. It's really up to the board.
I'm not available next Monday.
You're not? Okay.
I mean, Monday's just a day of the week. I mean, it could be any day, any time, actually.
Yeah.
But I think we get the most, after we talk to the department heads, the most, when we get Terry in here, we can even probably schedule a meeting if we just wanted to have a highway budget discussion. We could schedule that for almost any day of the week in the afternoon, or whatever would work for everybody.
Well, I suspect we're gonna probably wanna plan on the 8th of
Yeah.
December.
Okay.
Being a budget
Okay.
meeting. So it's,
On the 8th of December, you
Or do you want to have it at 6 or 5? You do it early and get it done with it early. I mean, all this talk about the 97,000 we're going to set off in a fund and take it out of this budget and reallocate it. I'm all for,
Right.
necessary bump ups in certain
said? And then
line items,
15.
but it'd be nice if we could just give a little bit back to the town too, and to town taxpayers. I mean, we don't have to spend it just because we have it.
Yeah,
And some of that funds that you were buying extra this for capital improvements and so forth, if we we don't have the means to do the capital improvements due to our staff being what it is, then what are we buying the material for? I mean, that's why we really need a list of priorities of what the capital improvements are being talked about, and a game plan as to, miles, material and so forth, before
Yep.
we start just bumping up the,
No,
the
I agree.
allocation.
but taking also into consideration that in a town with 85 miles of road, $28,000 in capital improvements in a year is very, very minimal. Yeah, that's material. I do agree completely, and I've had this discussion, that it requires a plan. What are we doing, and is it in the scope of the road department to do this, or should we be looking at a private contractor while the road crew maintains and prevents more roads from getting bad to fix this problem over here? There's a balance, I don't know where it is yet, but there's a balance between our guys doing it and subbing it out, or going for a grant and using the capital projects to be our portion of the grant. Yeah, there's a lot, we can't, I agree, you just can't, we're gonna spend 30,000 on capital improvements and we'll think about what later. It's,
And I mean, like you said, we gotta talk about the mowing.
Yeah.
Whether we're gonna get a new tractor, should some of that money that we're kind of taking out of the budget be used for that versus
Yeah.
some of the other things
Yeah.
we've discussed?
yeah, and there is a portion too here of flatlining it alone is a reduction in the ability to spend. Because at 1.6% now, I think it was on the 22nd, it was 1.6% in the CPI. That's for right now. We're talking about a budget that starts next July, and most of it will be spent going into 2017. So even flatlining is a reduction in the overall budget. There's no way we'll have a lot less spending power. So it is going to force cutbacks in just some things we operate, the way we operate. You know, you don't want to go too far, or that
Either
causes its own problems.
Either way.
But there are smarter ways of looking at things, and there's always a way of, someone comes up with an idea to try something else. But I do, like I said, I do agree with, you know, a plan. Plan for maintenance, plan for repairs, plan for everything. And that's the best way to keep it all smooth.
That's all I have.
Okay, well, I think we've agreed to not meet next week, but then meet the first 3 weeks in December. And I hope we can get it all fleshed out by then, because we don't want to be meeting
Christmas.
at Christmas. And then that schedule there shows the final budget meeting on
January
January
5th.
5th. We hope all issues are decided before then, and we're just
Yeah.
dotting i's and crossing t's.
The 8th, I heard 5 PM, and do we want to schedule that for 5 PM?
Do we want 5 PM or 6 PM on the 8th?
Well, the 5 PM was in order to get department heads in here, wasn't it? Make it more convenient for them.
Yeah, both
What's
of
the
these.
board's pleasure? Would you rather meet at 5 or at 6:30, a regular time?
6 is fine with me. 5 is fine with me. Anytime is fine.
Yeah, because the workshop on the 15th before the regular meeting is scheduled at 5 PM also.
Yeah. Yeah, for that special meeting, it's kind of, do you want to do it hungry or have dinner first is what I'm asking, I guess. I'd be inclined to go with 6 o'clock myself, or 6:30 even.
But this is our regular meeting too, right?
The 15th is a regular meeting.
Regular meeting.
Oh, the
Yeah.
first.
The-
oh,
the
okay.
First
budget
of the
workshop would
15th,
be
the
fine.
regular meetings, this would be a special meeting, just
So we're doing, I'm confused. So 5 o'clock on the 1st?
5
Yes.
o'clock on the 1st and the 15th.
15th.
And then the question is the 8th.
Okay.
Do we meet at 5
Or
or?
6. I'm open. You tell me.
Regular time is 6:30.
Yep.
Regular time on the 8th. then.
6:30
Yeah.
on the 8th, okay. Okay.
All right,
And hopefully we won't be, January 5th, trying to pull together the last of the.
Yes.
budget.
well, we'll know on the 17th whether or not
Yeah.
we're meeting on Christmas Eve. Okay, review of action items. The only thing I caught was 2 items for David to look at the cost of a pallet of road sealant and to figure out if we're supposed to be mowing the landfill once or twice by obligation a year. I move we go into executive session to discuss real estate transaction. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.